Hello, hello, and welcome to this episode of the Be Free podcast. And obviously, you can watch us live on YouTube as well. So today I've got a really interesting and inspiring guest in Mike. And Mike and I met via Instagram, and basically he is a cheerleader. Like, he would comment on my posts, he would watch the lives and some other lives of other people that I would watch. I would see that Mike was there supporting them, and I just absolutely love his approach. He is a podcaster, YouTuber, and mental health advocate, and he really brings so much to the world and allowing others to share their stories, to share information around mental health. And yeah, I'm really excited to dive in and chat with you, Mike, and hear more about you and what drew you to what you do. But to start with, do you want to just tell us a bit about who you are?
Firstly, Susie, thank you for having me on the show and that amazing intro. Because following that up now, the pressure is Thank you very much. That was lovely to hear all those nice words. And I think the same about, your Instagram account and now your YouTube channel and the light you bring to others and helping others, making the world a better place. So yeah, I'm all for that. So thank you very much. And a bit about myself. As you mentioned, I'm a YouTuber, mental health advocate. Started my YouTube channel 2 years ago, just to create a safe space for people to share their experiences, and through sharing their experiences, hopefully it helps others along that way. And I never claim, or my guests claim, unless they're specialists, to be experts, but there's so much had through experience. Experience is priceless. It teaches us so much. When we go through life on our journeys, without that experience, you don't know how to go through certain situations, how to navigate life. Mm-hmm. And when you do have that experience, it's a learning curve, hopefully, not for everyone, of course, because people are different, but I always use it as something to learn from, good or bad, trauma or what have you. Let's move on and actually evolve as people, because I think it's important to always learn from things that happen to you in life or incidents that occur,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think, as you've said there, I think there's, in our culture, like modern day culture, there probably isn't as much emphasis put on experience, and there's a lot of emphasis put on being suitably qualified and doing all these things, whereas I know from the clients I work with, yes, I am qualified in what I do, but the experience element of it is so much more powerful, from being able to connect with another human being that has lived through or is living through something similar. And as you say, I think we can learn so much from other people's experiences. And I know your YouTube channel, you've covered things from, bullying, abuse, healing, all sorts of different subjects. And I think there's these hard-hitting subjects need to be spoken about more openly. And I think it's beautiful that you give people this opportunity to share their stories, not just, as we said, kind of so-called experts, but real life people who have lived through trauma, who have lived through abuse or bullying and these things. So where did this podcast idea come from? Or YouTube channel, how did that come about?
Initially, as we were saying off camera about talking about imposter syndrome and things like that. Initially, it started as an idea that I wanted to direct and be the creative person behind a YouTube channel. Now, I wasn't meant to be the face of my channel. It was a friend of mine initially was meant to be the presenter, and I was just gonna kind of put the format together and be the creative person behind it all, the person who puts it all together. So, and then I spoke to her about presenting on a YouTube channel, and I did. Just to be honest, I'm a creative person, so I have lots of these ideas, and close family would say, I don't really follow through with a lot of them. So there's these wonderful ideas, but unfinished.
Yeah,
So
I hear you. As a creative person as well, I have so many. Yeah.
so this was going to be another one. And then a friend of mine who I approached to present the show. So I was like, I've got this great idea. We're going to have guests talking about all these topics. It's going to be a safe space. I'm going to get some experts on, but it's mainly going to be about people's experiences and sharing them and hopefully making a difference. And she was like, yeah, wonderful idea, but no, I don't want to do it. I was like, what? She goes, why don't you be the face of it? I'm like, well, that's not really, because for me, public speaking and me being the face of it gives me massive anxiety. So the whole idea of that, me being out there and anyone can see it on YouTube or Instagram lives and stuff, I was just like, no, it's not me. She goes, look, it's your project. It's going to be your baby, and who's going to promote it better than yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, she's speaking facts.
Yeah.
Mm. And I ummed and ahed with this for ages and made tons of excuses about why I shouldn't put it out. It's not perfect. I need the right, editing tools. I need, I've not studied journalism. I have no idea
The
about
qualifications. Here we go again. Yeah.
qualifications. All the limiting beliefs showed up for me. The impostor syndrome. Why am I doing this? I'm not qualified. I'm not capable. And all that showed up. And then my wife said to me one day, she goes, you know what, just put it out. Because I recorded them. So I had all this content that had not been released because I was so afraid of exposing myself. As I was saying to someone, it's like being naked out there, just totally exposed and vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I'm gonna get negative feedback. People aren't gonna like it. It's not quite right. So I'm denied with that. And like I said, my wife just said put it out. So one day I'll just put it all out.
Amazing.
And after that was, the positive feedback coming back from it. And, people really liked what they saw. But I got to say, from all of that, I was still getting the imposter syndrome. That was still showing up in the early days. I don't get it anymore. But I remember in the early, because it's been going for 2 years. So in the first year, the first 7 months or what have you, I was still getting that imposter syndrome. I used to get massive anxiety before I started recording, because I do it mainly through Zoom. So I remember the anxiety and getting over that, the deep breaths, the breath work I needed to do before I actually pressed record. And that basically became less the more I did. So, basically I'm saying is you have to push through it.
Yeah, we were saying that before, weren't we, about imposter syndrome? And we were like, how do you get over that? And we're both like, you just dive in. You literally just have to throw yourself into it. And then, as you
Not a
say,
magic
confidence comes through repetition. Yeah, you get more confident the more you do something.
It's no magic trick. You just got to dive in. And it feels a bit painful, but when you get through it, that real sense of achievement, when you overcome that, is, it makes it so worthwhile to doing something new that you may have thought you could fail at, and you could, but so what? And that's the thing. That's what we do. Where the anxiety comes from, is we build these things up so much in our head to be this this obstacle we can't overcome, we can't get beyond, when really it's just another thing that we need to do. And that anxiety just comes from something coming out of our comfort zone and trying to do something we're not familiar with. And that's where all of that comes. And once you get past that and your limiting beliefs, honestly, it's been one of the best things I've ever done in my life, doing this podcast.
Amazing.
And meeting so many great people like yourself, and so many people out there, the light workers, we call it, just shining their light in this through the darkness, when there's so many dark things going on in this world. It's nice to meet so many people, inspirational people that are making a difference. So you just have to push past it. And what I will say about that was the best advice I got. The best feedback was negative feedback.
Okay.
That was the best feedback I got, because what that did was make me question what I was doing and the why.
Yeah.
why was I doing this? And what, because let me just mention a little bit about the feedback I got. The feedback was generally saying that I should be doing controversial subjects. My podcast is boring. The thumbnails are boring. No one's going to watch you. You know, and all, it's just really negative. Your topics are boring. They're not, you know, they're not interesting enough. They're too long. So it was really like a real, and this was meant to be a so-called friend
And
of
was
mine.
this from the comments? Were they from people you knew, or were they from random
Yeah,
online
yeah.
people?
No, there were people I knew. This was
Okay.
someone
Wow.
I used to work with.
Hmm.
So hearing that, it crushed me initially.
Yeah.
Because all your self-doubt shows up again. That imposter syndrome starts showing up again for you.
Hmm.
But it was good because what it did was make me look long and hard about what my goal was and my target viewer, and really start analyzing what I'm trying to do and
Yeah.
narrowing it down a lot. Because as you said, I do lots of topics. So I'm trying to narrow it down a lot more and be specific to topics that are linked with mental health and mental well-being, even though you may not initially think that from something
Yeah.
from some of the topics I do, but it goes right back to state of mind and the type of impact whatever topic is has on that has on your state of mind and others. So it was the best it was the best feedback I got.
Yeah.
Because
Wow. Well done for coming back from that and you know, taking that criticism and turning it into a positive, because if you know, if you already had that imposter syndrome and anxiety before, things like that can be so detrimental to you know, moving forward. But obviously you had all the positive feedback as well to
yeah,
support
just talk about
what you were
good
doing.
stuff. Definitely, you had that balance, so it wasn't all negative. So it's easier said than done. If lots of people were saying what I heard from this particular person,
Yeah.
then that would have been very difficult to overcome. But now the positive feedback definitely pushed me past that negativity, because I was like, I am doing some good because people want to come on my show. They want to tell their stories. I am making a difference. I got thanked for podcast episodes I've done that made a difference to people's lives, and people still remind me about that today. And that was like going back 2 years ago. Some of them were filmed. So that difference was amazing. So yes, the positive as well, it outweighed the negative, but it's
Yeah.
using that and moving forwards. Because as I said, it's like anything, as I mentioned about experience, without taking that and using it to evolve, then there's, for me, that's a big point about life for me, is lessons all the time along the way on our journey, is actually learning from them and taking that and moving forwards.
Yeah, I love, for anybody that's listening as well, Mike's podcast is called The King's Forum. So I haven't said that yet.
Yeah,
People,
we haven't, have we?
where is it? Where is it? How can I find this
That's
guy?
great. That's great
I will
marketing, isn't
share all
it?
the links as well. But yeah, it's called The King's Forum. And as we mentioned, you've interviewed a huge variety of people on a huge range of subjects. And I just wondered, what would you say is kind of your main learnings from that experience of interviewing so many different people on different variety of things?
That deep down, no matter what it looks like on the surface, generally people are good and want to help others. Yeah, generally. Yeah, people want to make a difference, and you know, you can find inspiration in the most unlikely places. You would never think, but you know, people want to learn from the trauma they go through. People want to help others from the experiences, good or bad, that they've been through. And just that there's so many great people in this world who are making a difference that we don't realize, because they've not been given that spotlight or that opportunity, that space to tell their story to others. And that's one of the biggest things. And the amount of friends that I've made from these podcasts as well, they haven't just people I've cut off once I've spoken to them in an interview.
Yeah. Thanks. See ya.
Yeah. That's all I needed.
Yeah.
Now your history. No, I've made great friends from it as well, from the guests I've had on my show, and I've had a lot of repeat guests that come back and just to have their say on a range of topics. But yeah, I've really established some great friendships through it, which has been amazing.
Mhm. And I love that comment you made, that about people being good people. And, your podcast, it's not monetized. You don't make any money from it. You have a full-time job. This is something you do purely to allow others to share their story, to inspire, to educate. And yeah, I think that that's such an incredible gift that you are bringing into the world, and giving people that opportunity as well. So yeah, you should be really proud of yourself for fitting
Thank
that in when I know you have another job supporting other people as well. So it's beautiful work. So I know you have experienced long COVID, and
you.
I wondered if this is obviously a topic. I've been experiencing ill health since the start of the year. I haven't been diagnosed with long COVID. I have many people that have asked me if it is long COVID. My answer is, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with my health, and I am dealing with it in a lot of different ways. But yeah, like, do you want to share more on your experience with that? Because I know many people, and clients included, currently struggle with that.
Yeah, so 2 years ago now, I got COVID. I was one of the first people, the first cases that showed up. So the first variant that was one of the worst.
Mm-hmm.
I was hospitalized for 5 days. Yeah, it was in a bad way. It could have went one way or the other. Didn't know, but luckily, because with getting that COVID, I also got pneumonia.
Okay.
So yeah, it just wipes out your whole immune system. That first strain. So that was tough, but luckily all the amounts of medication, it was a blur that whole period there because I was being drugged so much at the time. So doctors coming in and out, nurses coming in and out, and then on the third day they were saying, look, it's like cleared up by like 50%. So they were amazed how my body recovered so quickly. And yeah, I was completely, I mean, the symptoms, shortness of breath, just the whole, no, you have no energy whatsoever. It saps. Yeah, that was a real tough time for me. But coming out of that, you think, yeah, I'm on the road to recovery. I've got this out my system, and it just kept on continuing. And I was speaking to doctors and things like that. And I was a part of research for UCLH in London, just to let you know, that helped and helps others through the test they did on me to figure out what was the best way of dealing with COVID and long COVID. So I was a part of that initial research that was being done, which I was glad to help out. So the symptoms just continued. So the fatigue, the breathlessness, the aching joints, the migraines, that just all continued for months and months. And I was like, what's going on here? Like, I thought this was it. Once I was out of hospital, I thought I was gonna, and the thing was, it was coming in waves. So I would have good spells, bad spells, good, and it was just constantly like that. So I was off work for a while, then back to work, off work again. So yeah, it's been a tough time. And I would say over the last 2 years, I think it's been the last 5 months I've actually felt like coming anywhere near myself in regards to health wise. And just going through that was very difficult. Was mentally.
Yeah, I was going to say, mentally, how did you cope with that?
Luckily, I have a great support around me, my wife and family and friends, and but it's still tough because you still think, you know what, you with mental health, you feel you're alone even though you've got people around you. So it's that whole dealing with that, and really things like yoga was great for me. Things like yoga, meditation were wonderful. Going for little walks when I had the energy. But the biggest thing I learned the most that helped me with my mental health and with long COVID on a whole was really developing a really good relationship with myself and my body, how it works, because I didn't have before. I used to just do things, but when you're going through long COVID, is really managing what you do. So
Yeah.
like the spoons, like we say, the spoons, don't we? Spoonies. So that little bit of energy, that spoonful of energy you have, make sure you use it wisely and don't burn yourself out. So it's been very, very mindful of the energy you were expending and, what you were doing on a day-to-day basis, and really watching what you eat, eating healthily, all these things that were going to help you, and having a nice set routine as well.
Yeah.
That wasn't going to throw your whole body out of whack because you've done something that you don't normally do and you've really pushed it. So a lot of it was saying no as well to family and friends about doing stuff, and when I could, I would. And that it's really knowing yourself, and you really have to have a good relationship with yourself. And that was getting back to basics, really, and really looking at me and what's best for me, and a real emphasis on self-love.
Yeah. So a lot of powerful learnings to take away, that I think that many people can take away from that reflection of the boundaries, the listening to your body, tuning into your body. Yeah, absolutely listening to you there. Since the start of the year, I have been experiencing fatigue and all sorts of different things. And like yourself, just working out this new, okay, what can I do? What can't I do? How much can I get away with? And then I do too much. And then, so just kind of navigating that as well. So whether that is through long COVID, or I'd previously had adrenal fatigue, or anyone who's listening who's maybe had chronic fatigue, I'm sure it can all relate to, I think there's probably some degree of everybody's experiencing post-viral fatigue, whether you've had COVID or not. This whole situation has been really detrimental, I guess, to people's nervous systems.
Yeah, definitely. I also forgot to mention the journaling. Good days, bad days, what I've done, what I did, the impact of the things I done. So that was good to really reflect on that, because then you can see a pattern of kind of, how your body is responding to certain things you're doing, activities, the food you eat. Because I also developed IBS for it as well. So that I had to get very particular about what I was eating, cut out dairy, cut out wheat, all sorts of things I had to do to really look at, what was really affecting me and making long COVID even more difficult to manage. So it was getting really, in depth and looking at the detail about how I go about my day-to-day and my life, and really looking at that.
I think that's such a good reminder for not only for the listeners, but for myself. So thanks for that.
It's all right. I just remembered that though, because there's a lot of stuff I've stopped doing and just kind of been getting on. It's got my health's improved, so I've cut down on certain things and just looked at, oh yeah, I can be functioning now to a lot better level where I can get stuff and I can do stuff and it doesn't completely wipe me out. And now I've got some reserves after, so I'm not being as particular about what I'm doing and what I'm eating now, because things have improved. So that's why I'll just remember, I was like, yeah, I was journaling in the beginning. That was really helping documenting what I was doing.
Amazing. Yeah. So many helpful things that people can have a little think about there. And obviously that must have been quite a traumatic experience, but I know just from us messaging each other that, you had some kind of childhood limiting beliefs, trauma, things like that as well, that I think it's really interesting. You're getting an opportunity now to share your story as being in the guest seat as opposed to the interviewer seat. So yeah, do you want to share a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, it was quite a traumatic household. My mum and dad used to be very physical. My dad was very physical, abusive to my mum, and You could talk about mental abuse as well. So a lot of arguments and fighting and seeing it as a very young child was very traumatic. And you know, a lot of those limiting beliefs showed up for me later on in my life about, and then you look back, don't you? The older you get, you start look, as I said, the why, looking at the why do I feel this way about certain situations, and kind of the impact of being exposed to that as a young child.
Yeah.
Because I've come from a West Indian background, so disciplining children as well, it was through hitting them. So you'd get hit from your parents, and sometimes really bad beatings you could get. So all of this it definitely impacts you, and you don't realize that until you start looking at, why am I starting to feel this way? So yeah, I started looking back at what, you know, what was giving me these limiting beliefs, and you know, within myself, you know, what was holding me back from, you know, doing or achieving what I wanted to in life. And what showed up from that was a lack of self-worth, that I was never enough.
Yeah.
So I really looked at my childhood and looked at, you know, especially when my dad passed away 7 years ago. I was very angry when he passed away, and I got a lot of therapy, went for counseling about it, grief counseling as well, and looked at how my relationship, because it was always strained, my relationship with my father.
Yeah.
And it was looking back on why that anger was there. And it took me a lot of work, but I eventually forgave him for who he was and the way he treated my mum and the rest of my siblings, and me, and that he didn't know any better. And that was a learning curve for himself, because he had the same treatment. So it was really this learned behavior that he was just, it was like, it goes down through generations. He was basically just doing what he thought was best for us. And that may sound warped to some people, that what does that mean? How's that better for you, by you being disciplined through, you know, getting a beating or what have you? But that's all he knew. And that was his way of, he thought, was toughening us up and hardening us to life, and being prepared for the real world out there, that it's not going to be easy for you. But you know, it's not the right way, but that's the way he knew. And that's what, you know, when we have conversations about emotional intelligence and things like that now, yeah, we can talk about that type of thing. But in his generation, his time, that's what you did. That's how you looked after your children, was by disciplining them in that way. So yeah, I looked at that. I looked at the lack of self-worth and not thinking I was enough through a lot of the things I was exposed to. And you know, and moving past that and trying to say, look, you are enough, and look at what you can do. Like we talked about my YouTube channel and other things I've done in my life, you could accomplish anything. But as I always say, your only limit is you. So we put up all these walls that stop ourselves. Just that's what I like doing, is reflect on me rather than looking at the external factors. I always look within and say, what could I have done better in this situation, you know, to have a better outcome, rather than blaming people and saying, well, because that person did that, that's why I didn't do that. You know, that happened, that's why I didn't achieve this. So I always look at that. So getting beyond limiting beliefs is really tapping into the why and getting the therapy and counseling for you to do that, because it's not an easy process, and it's ongoing, it never stops. You have to continually do the work, because that we're talking years of trauma, and it takes years of work to get over the trauma, and you never really get fully over it. It's always there and shows up every now and again, but it's just the levels of that trauma and then levels of how it affects you is what you have to work on and really dampen, so you can try and live a fruitful life.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that experience. And as you said, it's almost like these layers of an onion, isn't it? It's like you peel off one bit and then that might lead to something else and that might lead to something else. But you have managed to transform this really traumatic experience to almost break that generational, you know, what was deemed the norm, to break that cycle of generational abuse. And I think that this is something that we can see happening more and more as we become more aware. That you mentioned, you know, light workers, and you're a beautiful light worker in this world by transforming that experience, sharing it and reflecting on it and changing your life. And by changing your life, then that then changes so many other lives. And I think it's very powerful what you said there, and empowering that element of forgiveness. And, you know, it's not condoning behaviors, but you taking ownership of how you show up in the world rather than blame. And I think that can be a challenge. I see it through, you know, many people come to me for meditation lessons or sessions thinking, oh, I'm just going to come and lie under a blanket and, you know, zone out. But typically there will be things that come up. People will be crying. They're like, where is this coming from? And trauma and depression and forgiveness is a really challenging thing to recognize. You're not a victim anymore. Like, you have a choice in whether you're going to feel empowered or be the victim. And that's a difficult one, I think, for a lot of people to process.
Yeah, it's very difficult taking that power back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the thought of I don't like the word, and I don't like the thought of victim.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everyone has different situations, but from my experience, let me just
Yes.
talk about that, because that's easier said than done, isn't it? I don't like it, but it happens.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel it's kind of like acceptance, being a victim. That's all right. This is my situation, and I'm meant to suffer and feel pain.
Mm-hmm.
And the ownership and moving on is all about saying, yes, that happened to me, but that doesn't define me, who I am.
Yeah.
I'm more than my trauma.
Mm-hmm.
My trauma is something that I experience, but you know, I'm gonna take that and move on and learn from it, and be a better version of myself. And through that, I can help others and just live as good a life as I can from that, and not dwell on it and sit in that mindset, or or in that place. I want to go to a better place, a happier, more joyful place. And by realizing it happened to me rather than it is me,
Mm-hmm.
is how I managed to get beyond it.
Yeah. Incredible. Incredible. Wow. Yeah, there's so many takeaways from that situation. Thank you so, so much for sharing that. And obviously you mentioned kind of therapy, counseling, and like this ongoing support cycles
Mm.
that we need to keep ourselves mentally in check. And you've mentioned yoga and meditation. What does your current you know, how does your current lifestyle, what kind of things are you doing to support yourself mentally and emotionally just now?
You know, not as regular, but still
Mm-hmm.
with the yoga, still with the meditation, still with the nice long walks. But for me, baking and cooking is a major thing for me.
Love that.
That's my calm. I may put on some Bob Marley in the background and just have this chilled vibe, like I'm on some island somewhere in the West Indies, going back to my roots.
Nice.
And cooking and baking, you know, and remembering that household I grew up in with my mum. Those were the joyful moments for my mum, when she was cooking and baking and I would help her. So
Mm-hmm.
I've taken that from my childhood. You know, when you talk about the inner child and making that inner child happy, and
Yeah.
where some of that happiness definitely and joy really comes from, is that going back to when I used to help my mum in the kitchen and help her cook. So now I cook and it's my kitchen, and that's when I tell my wife to leave me to it, and
Mm-hmm.
don't bother me, because that's my zen space.
Yeah.
It's the kitchen for me. So I may bake some cakes, some muffins, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's the fact that it's the process,
Mm-hmm.
and just being mindful and being there and being present, and really enjoying that process. And it makes me really happy. And as I said, it makes my inner child happy, and it gives me real joy. So those are the things that really put me in that happy place.
Yeah.
You know, it calms me down for my anxiety, my, you know, it helps me with any panic attacks that I can feel, the signs,
Mm.
feel them brewing. And you know, they're my places that really that helps me manage my mental health.
Awesome. And I love that because before we started recording, you were speaking about your other job and how you enjoy like doing simple things with the people you support, like making them a Sunday roast and baking cakes. So it all kind of ties in there. I love that. And actually this weekend I was running a retreat for people with anxiety, and I cook. All the food is based, like, nutritionally created to support
Mm.
anxiety and depression and boost mood. And yeah, so the day before I just spent the whole day in the kitchen, and she said, just like making it with love, doing it mindfully. And yeah, somebody said to me, oh my gosh, did that not take you hours? And I'm like, I just love it. I just
Mm.
love it. I used to have a catering business as well
Oh,
years ago.
really? Wow.
So yeah, that's always been there, I guess. That just, I love cooking for other people as well. So
Nice, isn't it? That joy you give others.
yeah,
See them enjoy a meal that's something, as you say, prepared with love. Not just thrown
mm-hmm.
together. You've actually taken your time over the ingredients, the way you've made it, put it together
Yeah,
to see someone, have a smile on their face and really enjoying a meal that you've cooked for them. It's quite a nice, joyful thing to do, isn't it? To make it, make people happy.
definitely. And as you say, getting the tunes on, getting the music on.
A nice vibe.
So good, so good. And so my podcast, well, my whole business now is Be Free. It used to just be the podcast and the book, and now it's pretty much everything. I want to know, what gives you that sensation of freedom? Obviously, you mentioned a little bit of feeling anxiety and panic and things, but what makes you the opposite of that? Makes you feel free?
That's a good question. I thought, thinking about it, takes me in quite a few different directions.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Let me start with a little bit. The first thing that came to my mind was letting go of things that no longer serve you. So I always talk about the internal and things that are holding you back, and it could be pain, it could be trauma, anything like that. And I think it's dealing with those things. People call it baggage, when
Yeah.
they take baggage from one place to the next, or to another relationship. I think it's clearing that suitcase, is making space for yourself within,
Mm-hmm.
and that's dealing with all your rubbish you can have in that suitcase that you're hoarding and you're holding on to, and making space so you feel free, you feel lighter within
Yeah.
yourself. And that's doing the shadow work. And I think it's important for everyone to look at that, look at the why do I have these limited beliefs, why do I get anxiety, why am I having these panic attacks? Really look into the detail of who you are as a person, your
Yeah.
DNA. Even take it back, as we said, a lot of it's generational trauma. So it could be handed down from your ancestors. You don't know, but look into that. I've done a lot of that work, speaking to relatives and grandparents beforehand, and finding out what happened and kind of what's the history behind you. Yeah, that sounds a lot, but it does lighten you. It does. When you find out really who you are and what is your pain and what caused that, for me, that's freeing, and that's freedom.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, well, I have absolutely loved our conversation today. I
Thank
think
you.
it's really powerful. It's been such a joy to get to chat with you more deeply and find out more about your story. So the person behind the stories. And yeah, I think people will take a lot from today's episode. But how can people connect with you if they want to connect with you? What's the best way?
Right. So on Instagram, that I'm mostly on, is one Mike's keeping it 100 is my Instagram handle. You got the King's Forum podcast, which I didn't market too well at the beginning, but start mentioning that more.
Yeah.
That's on YouTube, so just put in the King's Forum and that I will show up. And as we talked about, it's on a lot of topics, hot topics, and mental health, centered around mental well-being. I'm also on Twitter, just the King's Forum, and that's the best way to get a hold of me. So
Love it.
your viewers are welcome if they ever want to be a guest, and to come and subscribe to my channel and be a part of this journey.
Yeah. Oh, wow. When's the TV show going to be, Mike?
The TV show.
Maybe we could start our own. We could be like the next Holly and Phil.
Listen, I'm up to collaborating whenever. So if you want to do something or have any ideas, I'm a creative, so I welcome anything. If you think that's a way to go, and you're passionate about it, and I can help, I'm always here for it. So don't worry about that. So if you think we could do a show of some sort, I'm up. Why not?
Oh my gosh, that would be so cool.
Why not?
Okay. Cool. Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay, we'll just throw that out to the universe right now.
Why not?
See what forms and bubbles away in the background. And yeah, guys, you might see us, on ITV soon.
Yeah, it's life is what you make it.
Definitely. Cool. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to connecting with you soon via the gram, no doubt. And everybody go subscribe to Mike's channel, check it out. There's so many incredible things there to go listen, watch, and we'll see you soon.
Love and light.
Love and light. Bye.
Bye.